Kanwal Sibal, ex-Foreign Secretary, needs no introduction. Also Tom Rose, someone who has been an advisor, we're told, to Trump, is here with us. Both these gentlemen, thank you very much. In about 45 to 50 minutes, we're going to see, of course, the historic oath-taking ceremony. Historic only because this time, breaking from tradition, certain foreign dignitaries have been invited, heads of state, etc., etc. But let me come to you straight, Mr. Sibal. Will Trump make India a lower priority, preferring to focus more on China? Is he going to be distracted by a lot of issues that he needs to set right at home, the expectations from the MAGA base? How will all this sort of play out? We're already hearing, and this is all source-based information, that Trump might in fact be planning a trip to India in March, which obviously sends out signals of its own. So how are you seeing this?
Well, firstly, we shouldn't have the illusion that India is central to Trump's program or his concerns or his foreign policy or his problems. India is a valuable partner, will continue to be one, and our relationship will continue to grow. But if we begin to constantly look for signals whether enough attention is being paid to us as compared to attention being paid to China or some other issues, then we'll be constantly disappointed. The thing is, you first attend to your serious problems before you pay attention to issues which are not really a problem. That's one aspect. The other is that India is not central to US foreign policy. And we should accept that. Even if in the Indo-Pacific area, we have an important role to play, we still are not central. Central to US foreign policy is what's happening in the Western Pacific. Its alliances with Japan and with South Korea, then with Philippines. The fact is that they have enormous number of troops deployed there, the military deployments. Their 7th Fleet is there. Or 6th Fleet, whatever it is. They have bases there. Then they have troops in South Korea. North Korea is a problem. Taiwan is a problem. China is threatening constantly to take over Taiwan. US has certain responsibilities. They don't want those responsibilities to be tested. And therefore, they will continue to engage China, even as they consider China as a very big threat and need to be deterred. India does play a role in that. But it is not, again, an absolutely central role. It's a very important role, but not a central role. And therefore, we should be pretty objective as to where we stand with the United States. Then comes the other things. On trade, yes, we have become a big trade partner of the United States, $200 billion, but they have about $700 billion of trade with China and a huge trade, I forget the figure, but European Union is almost as big a partner of United States, and there are a lot of issues with the European Union.
And there's, of course, best buddy Musk, who has very big interests in China to protect also.
Exactly. Yes, iPhone has made some huge splash here because of the huge number of volume of exports that are going out from this country. But this is nothing compared to the kind of involvement the United States has in China. There is, of course, the issue of trade, as I mentioned, the question of deficit and this and that. This is a bit unfair. United States is $35 billion, whatever, 25 or 35 billion, $1 trillion economy, the richest country in the world, with the huge trade, and so many advantages they enjoy on the financial sector, with the dollar as their reserve currency, which gives them the capacity to control the international financial system. What happens in the United States in terms of inflation, their domestic policies, their rates and everything else starts affecting the entire world, including us. Therefore, to pick on us saying that we must reduce the trade deficit with a country like India, where the per capita income is about 30 times less than that of the United States, and which is genuinely a developing country, though in some areas we made good progress. Therefore, to attack us on that is a bit unfair. And then there is the larger issue of how they're treating the WTO. For the rest of the world, the global south, especially the only organization on the trade side which is a guarantee for a rules-based economic order or a trade order is the WTO, which the United States is wrecking. On climate change, again, Trump has a certain policy which has repercussions for us, mind you, because the entire structure of climate change negotiations and meeting the target of 1.5 or whatever it is depends on transfers of technology and finances. And if Trump actually doesn't believe in climate change and says dig baby dig or drill baby drill and wants to actually drill in Greenland, notwithstanding the terribly fragile ecology of that area, then you can see that in terms of the core of the international agenda under the Paris Climate Change Agreement is not going to be abided by.
Okay, so let's open this up, because I'm getting pictures also from the US Capitol now, and you can see the Trump family, the entire family going in. You saw Mr. Trump going in with Biden, the outgoing president. You're also seeing, of course, pictures of an Indian immigrant to the United States who runs the entire Google, Sundar Pichai, talking very interestingly with Musk, who, of course, has backed this entire drive against immigration, the MAGA base, etc., etc. So interesting contrast visually there. But let me bring in Tom Rose. Tom Rose, Trump has made it his mission to initiate what he calls fair trade across the globe. And he has singled out the tariff regime, which he says makes certain countries benefit more, the cost of American industrial workers, etc., etc. How is he going to approach it? Is it going to be two-tiered? Is he saying, okay, we'll focus first on China, lower-hanging fruit. There is consensus on the Hill to go after China, but other countries like India, etc., let's take it a little slower. Or do you think he's going to throw the kitchen sink at both in one go? There are 100 executive orders that are expected to be put out in the next 24 hours. Is India going to find itself on the wrong side of one of them? Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. Secondly, I think what the president will do later today, this evening, your time, is issue, as you indicated, a series of executive orders that will primarily focus on domestic U.S. issues. I thought the analysis by Mr. Jaishankar earlier was absolutely spot on, and that is that the first order priorities are those areas that trouble the president and impact negatively relationships with the United States. The fact that India is not really a first order priority, that's good news. It's good news for India, and it's good news for the United States. It's a signal that our relationship with India is strong, and it's going to get stronger. India is the largest democracy in the world. The president has an excellent relationship with your prime minister. That relationship, the president is focused and committed to personal relationships with our allies, even personal relationships with our adversaries and competitors. He has an outstanding, excellent working relationship with Prime Minister Modi. They're not only friends, they're partners. I think the president's inaugural address, which, as you indicated, will be given here in shortly over 1 hour, will mark the beginning of a new era for America's trade partners, a new era for American manufacturing, the sanctity and security of our borders. Here in the United States, we have lots of problems that were aggravated, accelerated, and put on high-speed disorder by the previous outgoing administration. The president more than has his hands full here at home, and the fact that India factors not as a first-order priority, that's good news. It's good news. Indians should be excited. They should be happy. There are problems in the bilateral relationship, just as surely as any close families have problems. The relationship that the U.S. has with India has some bumps in the road, but nothing that can't be successfully managed, and there's absolutely no indication whatsoever that our relationship with India, India's relationship with the United States, will do anything but improve.
So let me ask you this, Mr. Rose, before I bring in Mr. Sibal. Will Trump continue to bear down on Russia further, making it more awkward for India, for example, to pursue its friendship with its old ally, perhaps down the line when he sort of turns his attention to foreign affairs?
Perhaps in the short term, but in the long term, again, I think that bodes well for India. I think the president's insistence on beginning a process to end this horrible war in Ukraine. You know, these kinds of peace negotiations don't end in a day. They take time. They can be laborious. They can be drawn out. They can be very difficult. We can see an acceleration of fighting before there's an effective armistice or ceasefire. But the president's commitment to end the war, to win the peace, that means that India will, on the backside of that agreement, on the backside of that transaction, because the transaction will mean that there will have to be something done with American and European sanctions against Russia on a positive note for Russia, that India's relationship with Russia will improve. Again, I think it's good news. Maybe in the short term, it might not be immediate good news, but the president's focus and emphasis and commitment on bringing some kind of resolution to this horrific, unnecessary, tragic war will redound to India's benefit.
Well, I would love to be a fly on the wall there and hear what Bezos is saying to Pichai and Pichai is saying to Musk, and the little confabulation in the galleries that is taking place. That's interesting because, viewers, Trump 1.0 found himself at loggerheads with big tech. Now they seem to be sort of sitting in his camp, and I wouldn't say, except for Mr. Musk, fully supporting him, but definitely not in any way agnostic to him. They're slightly leaning towards him. So that's a big dramatic change. But Kanwal Sibal, as we're getting these pictures from the galleries, a who's who of America packed in there, I have to ask you, we've talked a little bit about perhaps the awkward thorns in the relationship. Where are the meeting points?
The meeting points. The meeting points, is obviously on the strategic side, the challenge that China is posing to the United States and the Indo-Pacific strategy, which was espoused by Trump in his first term. And therefore, there is no reason why there should be any change in that, especially as his principal appointees are China hawks, declared China hawks. If you heard Mark Rubio's Senate hearings, it came out very clearly where he stands on the China threat. And both he and the NSA, they look upon India as a partner. And this partnership, in their mind, has as an axis the Indo-Pacific strategy, and together meeting the threat that is posed by China. Second is the whole area of critical and emerging technologies. Now there, the Biden administration was, to my mind, very sensible and forward-looking in teaming up with India talent and capacities to jointly address the development of these critical and emerging technologies and wean ourselves away from China's domination in some of these critical areas. That interest of the United States will remain, though there are some doubts to the effect that Trump wants everything to be manufactured in United States itself, and therefore there may be more restrictions that are placed on transfers of technology from the United States to its partners and this and that. But I think that the wiser counsels will prevail. You see the kind of global capability centers that American corporations have built in India. With thousands of Indian technicians are working for them.
Yeah.
So the corporate sector is there. They are interested. They see what the prospects are, and they will therefore keep on, trying to dampen any effort on the part of Trump or others to try and clamp down a little bit on this part of the relationship. That's the second one. The third is that India is a rising power. Its economy is growing. There are huge opportunities for the American corporate sector in India.
Right.
And therefore, they're going to look ahead and see if they can keep on capitalizing on this potential. And in fact, on one part, help build up this potential and then benefit from it. So that will be the third commonality that we have. And then there is the other commonality, which is the Indian diaspora. It's 5 million, 4 million strong that is there in the United States. And they are playing a very important and critical role. And now more and more people of Indian origin are coming into the highest posts in the US administration. So to that extent, this reinforces the general impression and the message that India and the Indians are valuable partners. Finally, I think in the entire area of combating terrorism and Islamic extremism and
Yes.
everything else, there is again a commonality of interest between the two countries. How it expresses itself, that remains to be seen. But our problems with regard to terrorism and everything else, and United States' own fears and concerns, I think would provide a meeting ground for both of us to address this issue together.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. We're going to continue, of course, with this broadcast and another series of guests. Thank you, Mr. Sibal and Mr. Rose, for tuning in tonight with us.